Hello and welcome to another Blog video diary. It's been a lovely few days and the sun's shining, really lovely sunny days, but there's a coolness in the air. We're still having frosts at night and wake up to temperatures just above zero. But yet here in the cobble bed, the narcissus and some of the slightly bigger narcissus are coming out now. Not the great big ones, but small ones, so they fill it up. Beyond the mass flowering of the Erythronium and it's gone over, and the Corydalis malcensis is starting to fade now. You can see here there's the primroses, and just further along the cowslip, so Primula vulgaris and Primula veris. So the phase the garden's in just now is that transition from the last video where we looked at the Corydalis malcensis, which was the dominant around many of the areas, and you can still see quite a lot of traces of it. But now the Erythroniums are really starting to ping, responding to this weather. So the pink revolutum forms, and most of these are just seedlings into the garden, so there may be some hybrids. The anemone pallida here. This is the cross between ranunculoides and nemorosa, which I'll show you when I go around here in a minute. Erythronium Craigton cover girl, our own hybrid. But as the Corydalis malcensis went over, we started to get the other forms of solida, so the pinks, they seed around, and this is them breaking out into the path, trying to escape. Plants will move. I mean, we plant a plant and expect it to stay in one place, but many of them, especially the woodlander types, it's the way they've evolved, so they will move around the garden. Up in here you can see some of the less showy Corydalis, so violets and purples. The first of the trilliums are appearing. These Erythronium hybrids there, yet to burst into bloom, but this is the first one I see breaking open now. But it's just this intermediate stage I was going to show you and feature this time. So here was the mass where the Corydalis malcensis is mostly going over. There's other things coming through. Some of the herbaceous plants are now coming through, the bigger herbaceous that will give us colour in the summer. There's fritillarias there, I see. This area where we had to cut down an old acer that reached the end of its life and it was dying back, so we cut it down to a stump, and underneath it we're just allowing wildflowers, really, or stealth seedlings in wildflowers, and see what happens. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes up in there. And so the anemone pallida, which I showed you down there and we've got all around, is a hybrid between the native anemone nemorosa, so just a little wild one from the woods, and this one, anemone ranunculoides. And crossing those two you get something intermediate. So this is the anemone ranunculoides. It's in a year this year where it's not flowering so profusely. And this is often the case with a lot of plants. You'll get a really bumper flowering year, and then maybe the next year, occasionally the next 2 years, there's just a sort of token flowers. And then the following year to that, after a bit of a a rest and time to recuperate and build strength, they'll punch back with an explosion of flowers. But you can see all around the Erythronium starting to ping out. If I go up here into the sunshine, this is where it becomes almost impossible for me to see what I'm videoing, because it's very difficult to see the screen in this light. So I'm going to try and frame the stuff properly. So here we've got some more Erythronium hybrids. The nearest one and the palest one creating cover girl. The other one's just another garden hybrid that's self-seeded. And here you can see how the self-seeding continues as they pop down into the path. But you can see how the plants are escaping out of the bed. The line of granite stone was the edge of the bed and this side was the path, but plants don't respect paths. So here's a Trillium ovatum. This is the other area, the mossy bit. It's difficult to know what's going to come up in here because, to be honest, I've thrown so much seed into it from various sources, everything from the so-called weedy species to some quite unusual things. But we did try and keep that free of gravel like there. It was just gravel. But we gave up the cause because the plants decided they want to come out and grow here as well, so we're just going to let them. Because if you've got lots of plants that you want, there's less chance for weeds or plants you don't want to get in. Around here we can see the problem with the paths. Here's the anemone pallida growing nicely down there. And the erythroniums just all around the paving slabs, which used to be, the paving slabs were surrounded by a gravel area until the plants discovered that was a great place to grow. Trillium grandiflorums, and this is the new area we opened under the big rhododendrons and are slowly planting up. It won't be long before it's fully populated with plants as well. But many of the usual suspects we've put in here, so anemone pallida will give us some ground cover. That's Erythronium Susannae, the yellow one. And I'll plant out some more, but I've been throwing seed of erythroniums in and you'll see how the seeds start to get a hold. It won't be long before they're up to flowering size. So you've got to spot the paving slabs and carefully step over from one to one, which as the erythroniums grow up and their flower stems extend, becomes increasingly more of a challenge. So I love the way the erythroniums seed down the wall and cascade and grow in the face of the wall, as well as all the way down. Mostly revolutums, although I see some japonicum leaves and flower buds there, so Erythronium japonicum. And of Erythronium americanum in here as well. So many of these seem to have come true and are just Erythronium revolutum, but you can spot the odd hybrids. They tend to be the ones that clump up more. Lots of leaves of the Erythronium americanum. The immature leaves come in advance of the flowering stems, which will have 2 leaves, but I can see some of the flowering ones up in there, which I dare say we'll see in a future video. But just to show you how they self-seed into the gravel here, I'm standing on the path here, and all around it's just a carpet of green, the majority of which is Erythroniums. In the back, the Cardamine, or whatever it's called nowadays. And there's more Erythroniums, but again this is the cooler area, so a lot of these excuse me, Erythroniums will open a bit later. Although the ones that are out here and catch a bit of sun and a bit of heat will pop open that bit sooner. Or the Dendrocaris. And more Erythroniums growing down the face of the wall. And here they're sharing the crevices with Trillium rivale, also growing in the gaps of the wall. And all the way down and at my feet. Down here my wall with the Erythronium, or pseudo-Trillium rivale, as they seem to want to call it nowadays. They are growing beautifully in the... Most of them, 1 or 2 have not appeared yet, so maybe I've lost 1 or 2, but I do find there's sometimes a problem with the mice digging in and opening up the holes and maybe taking out the plant, and birds sometimes pull stuff out. But good to see that for the most part they're growing well up there and seeding themselves. Also here the Trillium hibersoni. Funnily enough, Trillium hibersoni flowers get more eaten than the rivale ones. The rivale ones don't get touched by the slugs. But now here's a Americanum flower open. And the bees are doing a bit of pollinating for us. But up here there's more Corydalis, the pink ones, with the solidus. In the monks you'll find plenty more Trillium rivales, just popping their little faces up. There's Jeffersonia dubia. And Jeffersonia, is it diphylla, biphylla? I can never remember the American one there. And here's the first of this is the first of the Erythronium sibiricums that I've noticed in flower. They always come that wee bit later than many of the others. More Trillium hibersoni. I love this wee thing. We were first given it seed of it by Harold Esselmont about 45 years ago, And everything in the garden has come from that original few seedlings. Be several generations removed as we continue to grow it from seed. And then where it is up here, we just leave it to seed itself around. So you're getting a good impression of the light and shade. So I'll just pass down this path and then finish up, because I'm really struggling to see what I'm showing you. Because I will be back fairly soon when the erythroniums really start. But down in this whole bunch, all these that I'm showing you now are all self-seeded into the edge of the path. They much prefer growing in the edge of the path. More trilliums. And more of the cardamine. We have that in different colourways now. I've found a few bits that I've managed to collect a few little bits of. So I've got a creamy white one. And we've got one that's sort of intermediate, so it's a very pale pink and bigger flowered. More trilliums just starting to come out here. There's albidums, there's more grandiflorums there. Trillium erectums, hybrids, yep. Up here there's a visiting pussycat. Not ours, it comes in. It's not very friendly, it won't come for a cuddle. But it comes here to try and hunt our birds and look for mice. I was watching a little mouse running about up there just a wee while ago, so maybe the cat's not so lucky, but I saw it. The Fritillaria imperialis looking quite imperial, although at the weekend we had 50, 60 mile an hour winds blowing through the garden. And that's really, they were all bolt upright, but they were all battered a bit after that, but they've sat up and recovered. But just wherever you look, it's more of the same. Well, I suppose the other plant I've not shown you, but there's plenty of. Oh, you're off, are you, pussy? Bye-bye. Don't bother to say bye-bye. There's the hellebores. They're all over the place, seeding around as well. So this is the areas we'll look at next time. No, we should really have a quick look at the hepaticas and the Corydalis in this wee bed. They've been looking great. Hepaticas flowering quite well. Even the seedlings coming right down to seeding in the edge of the path. Again, it's trilliums, and if you look up there, all sorts of hellebores that are self-seeding around and spreading themselves. I suppose it's a good enough place to finish. A little view summing up what we've seen. So the Corydalis malcensis started to fade out, the Erythronium started to come through. So I'll call it a day there now and go off and have a cup of tea. Thanks very much if you've watched me again, and I'll be back quite soon I have no doubt featuring mostly Erythroniums. So bye for now.